You know that person who goes completely quiet when something hurts them? The one who says, "I'm fine," but really means, "leave me alone." Yeah, that person isn't cold, and they're definitely not broken. There's actually a lot more going on beneath that silence than most people realize. If you're someone who shuts down instead of speaking up, stay with me, because today we're getting into the psychology of people who go quiet when they're hurt. And by the end of this, you might understand yourself in a way you never have before. Let's start with the biggest misunderstanding. When you go quiet, people assume it's a decision. Like you sat there and thought, "I'm just going to shut them out." Like it's calculated, like it's some kind of power move. But that's not what's happening at all. When you get hurt, something shifts inside your body. It's subtle, like a quiet closing. Words become harder to reach. Your chest feels heavy, and trying to explain something you haven't even processed yet feels impossible. That's not you being difficult. That's your nervous system doing exactly what it was designed to do. There's something called the freeze response. Most people know fight or flight, but freeze is just as real. When emotional pain becomes too overwhelming, your brain pulls the emergency brake. It slows everything down to protect you. And here's something most people don't know. The part of your brain responsible for language actually becomes less active during emotional overwhelm. So when someone says, "just talk to me," and you physically can't, it's not stubbornness. Your brain is literally making words harder to access because it's focused on keeping you together. You're not shutting people out. You're holding yourself in. And there's a big difference. But this didn't start recently. You weren't born this way. Kids don't hide their emotions. They cry, they scream, they express everything freely, until something teaches them not to. Maybe you grew up in a place where emotions weren't safe, where you were told you were too sensitive, where your feelings were ignored, dismissed, or even used against you. So you adapted. You got quiet. Not because you stopped feeling, but because feeling out loud came with consequences, and your brain remembered that. Over time, that silence became a survival skill, something your younger self built to protect you. And it worked. It got you here. Now here's the part most people don't see. While you look quiet on the outside, your mind is incredibly active on the inside. You're reflecting, analyzing, replaying. You're asking yourself, did I cause this? Have I felt this before? What does this actually mean? What happens if I say something right now? You're not avoiding the situation, you're processing it deeply. Because for you, speaking too soon feels risky. So you wait until you understand what you feel, until you have something real to say. And there's something else most people don't realize. Part of your silence is actually protection. Not just for yourself, but for the people you care about. Because you know that when emotions are fresh, what comes out might not be fair or even true. So instead of reacting, you pause. You hold it in. Not to punish anyone, but to avoid saying something you can't take back. There's a concept called the window of tolerance. It's the state where you're calm enough to communicate clearly. When you're outside of it, overwhelmed, flooded, no real conversation can happen. And even if you've never heard that term before, you already understand it. That's why you wait. But here's the hard part. Most people don't understand this. Instead of giving you space, they push. "Just talk to me. You're shutting me out. This isn't fair." And every time that happens, it reinforces something deep inside you, that your way of processing isn't valid. But what you actually need is simple. Not easy, but simple. You need patience. You need someone who can sit with your silence without taking it personally. Someone who trusts that you'll come back. Because when you feel safe, you do open up. Not because you were forced to, but because you're ready. And here's something really important about you. When you finally speak, you mean every word. You've thought about it, turned it over, checked it for truth and fairness. You don't speak just to react. You speak to express something real. In a world where people say things they don't mean in the heat of the moment, you say less, but you mean all of it. That's not emotional unavailability. That's emotional integrity. So when you put it all together, here's the truth. You go quiet when you're hurt because your nervous system is protecting you. Because you learned that vulnerability wasn't always safe. Because your mind processes emotions deeply. And because part of you is always trying to protect the people you love. You are not cold. You are not broken. You are someone who feels deeply and takes the time to understand those feelings before expressing them. And yes, not everyone will understand that, but the right people will. They'll learn that your silence isn't distance. It's presence. A quiet, thoughtful kind of presence. And maybe, over time, you'll find it a little easier to let someone in sooner. Not because your silence was wrong, but because you finally feel safe enough not to need it as much. And that's not fixing a flaw. That's healing. If this felt like it finally put words to something you've been carrying for a long time, you're not alone, and you're not broken.